It's been nearly 20 years since Buick first introduced the Enclave nameplate to the States all the way back in 2007. Now, if you remember, this vehicle was designed to replace several models in the Buick portfolio, but as the brand's three-row family SUV, this vehicle kind of has to play dual roles within the Buick lineup in offering enough space for families, but also offering enough luxury and technology to carry Buick forward as a premium brand. Now, for 2025, there's an all-new version of the Enclave, and just like its platform mates, the Chevrolet Traverse and GMC Acadia, this is a pretty comprehensive redesign. We're talking about new sheet metal, a new platform, a new turbocharged engine under the hood, and a brand new interior with a massive 30-inch curved display. So as you can see, this week we're actually here in Portland, Oregon to finally get behind the wheel of the new Enclave. And the big question I want to answer, has Buick made enough changes to the new model to make this thing a worthy option against other luxury rivals? Stay tuned to find out. So in the last year and a half, Buick has been on a pretty steady mission to completely revise their entire lineup, and the Enclave was technically the last model to get the full redesign that it really needed. So this is now in its third generation, and just like its platform mates, the Chevrolet Traverse and GMC Acadia, this is a pretty comprehensive redesign. But before we start talking about the exterior styling changes, let me go ahead and pop the hood and show you guys what's powering this thing. Now, the previous generation Enclave offered a naturally aspirated 3.6-liter direct injection V6. That engine has been discontinued. Replacing it, of course, is a new 2.5-liter gasoline direct injection turbocharged four-cylinder. We've also seen this powertrain in the new Acadia and Traverse. It's essentially a smaller version of the 2.7 that you find in the Chevrolet Colorado and the GMC Canyon. In the Enclave, it makes 328 horsepower and 326 pound-feet of torque. That's an increase of nearly 50 horsepower and it's an increase of 18 horsepower and around 60 pound-feet of torque more versus the V6. So that's a pretty healthy increase. It all goes out through an 8-speed automatic transmission, so it's down a gear compared to last year, but the transmission is going to be better suited, of course, for the engine's power game because this is now a turbocharged engine. Fuel economy, in case you're wondering, is 19 in the city, 24 on the highway with all-wheel drive. If you guys go for a front-wheel drive version, it improves to 20 in the city and 27 highway. It has roughly a 22-gallon fuel tank. You're looking at around 450-ish miles of range between Phillips. That's thankfully on regular grade gas. Now, Buick doesn't quote a 0 to 60 time, but I had a chance to test out this car's platform mate, an Acadia and a Traverse. Those two models did it in the low 7-second range, so I'd estimate this will be pretty similar. It's still a big SUV, so it can tow a maximum of 5,000 pounds, and because this vehicle is one of the largest in the segment, it's also one of the more heavier options, weighing in at just under 5,000 pounds, so it's about the same weight as the previous generation. But let's go ahead and close up the hood here and talk about the exterior styling, because as you can see, Buick first introduced this design language on the Wildcat concept a few years ago. In fact, I really loved the look of this car when I saw the front fascia on something like the Invista, but here on the Enclave, you can see the front end. For me, I think that the fascia and this styling language doesn't translate quite as well to the Enclave, but styling is always a subjective thing. You can see you've got the newest Buick logo here with their Tri-Shield insignia. At the front end, you have the trendy design element here with the headlights, which have a divorced element where the top portion is an LED daytime running light with a sequential LED turn signal. You have your LED low and high beams here. The headlights also do kind of a welcome animation as you approach the vehicle or if you lock and unlock the vehicle. The Avenir trim that we're showing you here is actually the luxury-oriented trim. So Avenir, Buick tries to position it in the same way GMC positions Denali. It's kind of the luxury sub-brand within Buick. It has a unique grille here with the chrome accents, the gloss black accents. You can see there's some functional air intake, some active grille shutters. You have parking sensors, front and rear, along with your radar sensor there. This particular one that we're showing you also has the Super Cruise option, so keep in mind this is the first Buick ever to get Super Cruise, which is a great feature if you guys plan to do a lot of road tripping. I've had a chance to test it on multiple GM models and it works extremely well. But overall, let me know what you guys think of the design language. We'll actually show you a brief overlook of an ST trim, which is the sport-oriented model. This, again, is going to be the more luxury-oriented trim. Now, moving around the side profile, this is a big vehicle when you look at the actual profile. In fact, with a 121-inch long overall length, wheelbase with a 207-inch long overall length. This vehicle has the same wheelbase as the previous generation, but its overall length has increased by about 3 inches. It's also around a couple inches longer than the Traverse and the Acadia. So if you want the biggest version of GM's three-row crossover SUV, you're going to be looking at the Enclave, and this is where the Buick gives you a lot of interior space. Now, looking at the wheels, you can see the Avenir trim comes with these massive 22-inch wheels with a satin nickel finish. That's kind of a classic styling characteristic of any Buick with the Avenir badge. I actually do like the satin nickel finish with the multiple spokes. The 22-inch wheel rides on a 275 by 45 R22 Continental all-season tire. You have a little over 7 inches of ground clearance. There is no off-road oriented version of the Enclave like you would find on the GMC or the Traverse. This is designed to be more for the street. You can see the Avenir also includes nice features like the body-colored wheel arch trim. It's got like full paint finish that gives you more of that premium look. And when you go for the Avenir, you got the upgraded adaptive suspension system, which Buick calls it FE5, I believe. It's technically a different suspension tune versus what you find in the Traverse and in the Acadia, even the top-level Denali trim. Now you can see, looking at the rest of the styling profile, the mirrors, they're body-colored, power folding, integrated turn signals, and full 360 camera. That's going to be standard equipment on every version of the Enclave. You can see the Avenir also includes some chrome along the window trim, along the door handles. You also get these silver painted roof rails, which are the low profile for aerodynamics. And then you can see the big panoramic sunroof. That's going to be standard equipment on the Avenir. It's a $1,500 upcharge if you guys are looking at the preferred trim, which is the base, and then the mid trim, which is the ST, the sport oriented version. Now looking at the rear, you can see, I think that the rear end design of the new Enclave for me is more successful. I really love the upscale look of this vehicle with the full length LED light bar. The Avenir trim also gives you the chrome finish for the actual taillight assembly. It's a full LED taillight. Other trims will have a red colored taillight accent. You can see the new Buick logo here looks right at home. It has the usual Enclave badging back here with the Buick badge there. It's kind of very tasteful, but also very upscale. You might look at this and not even realize it's a Buick. So I think the company did a phenomenal job with the rear exterior styling. I also really appreciate the dual exhaust tips, which are a rectangular design. Although I do actually think that the quad outlet exhaust that you find in the Acadia, for me, looks a little bit nicer, but this is an elegant, sophisticated look with the integrated parking signals, the chrome accents around. You can see the rear wiper. While it's not cleverly hidden under the spoiler, it looks tasteful here. You've got a digital camera review mirror along with this little spoiler at the back, which again finishes off the rear design. Now, a power liftgate is going to be included. Getting the liftgate open, this is where the Enclave does really well if you guys are looking for maximum cargo capacity. In fact, Buick says with the third row seat up, it seats 3 across as well. You get up to 23 cubic feet of space. 23 is certainly a lot, but it is down by 1 cubic feet versus the previous generation. Remember, the old Enclave was among the biggest in the segment. You can see the carpeting back here is actually pretty nice. You also have a really usable underfloor storage area, which actually that's a massive amount of space. And then if you guys go for a power package or it's standard on the Avenir trim, you can actually just power fold the third row. As you can see, just push that button. It kind of gets stuck against the second row if the seat's all the way back, but if you fold down the third row, it expands the cargo to around 57 cubic feet of space. And if you fold down the second row, if you fold down everything, Buick says that it'll allow you to get up to 97.5 cubic feet of space. So that's pretty similar to what you find in the Traverse and in the Acadia, but just keep in mind, if you guys had the previous generation Enclave, maximum cargo is 98 cubic feet of space, so it's a little bit smaller, but this is still among the biggest that you're gonna find in this segment. So moving on to the interior of this Buick Enclave Avenir trim. First of all, the outside Buick I thought did a pretty good job in terms of the styling with, familiarizing it with the rest of the Buick design language. But what about the interior? Getting inside, you can see this particular Avenir trim has a really beautiful color combination. This is kind of like a light gray with the contrast piping and stitching, and it also has like a mocha two-tone look. Buick also offers a blue look with this light gray. The mocha is technically a later availability, and then there's also a black interior and a sandstone interior, but this interior color is unique to the Avenir trim, and I think it actually looks really fantastic with the kind of white crystal frost exterior color. Now, once we're inside here, you can see this is the key fob for the vehicle. This is Buick and GM's latest intelligent access key with the new Buick logo on it. It has usual buttons here for unlock, lock, remote start, power liftgate, and panic feature. And the key itself, it's perfectly fine. It's a good size and it feels nice in your hands. When you want to start the vehicle up, the start stop button is right here. It's kind of blocked by the steering wheel. It's basically in a place where you expect it to be. And then when you turn the vehicle on, remember, this is not a hybrid or a mild hybrid. I'm really sad to see that Buick didn't actually make a hybrid powertrain available, but GM is working on developing new hybrid powertrains. But for now, all you get is this 2-liter turbo 4, or I'm sorry, this 2.5-liter turbo 4. Now, looking at the door panels, you can see this is a Buick Enclave Avenir. So you would expect this model, compared to its other GMC and Chevrolet rivals, to have the nicest interior, and the Buick certainly delivers. You can see this upper door portion here has some faux stitching material with a soft touch injection molded plastic. You have some aluminum accents here for the door handles. There's also some kind of rose gold aluminum accents, and there's also some wood grain going into that blends really nicely with the metal speaker covers for the 16 speaker Bose Performance Series audio system. The window controls, the windows are one touch down for all four, but it's only one touch up on the driver's side. So I think that for a Buick Avenir trim, it should have just been one touch for all four. That's a little bit of a nitpick criticism. You can see the steering wheel looks like it was practically lifted off of the latest Mazda CX-90. In fact, I think that's a good thing. I love the way the steering wheel looks. It's got a really nice thick rim, really nice contrasting leather. The leather also feels high quality. I love the brown color. Keep in mind, if you guys go for a different color interior, you can get a black steering wheel, or I believe a blue steering wheel. The blue steering wheel is definitely the thing that's probably the most controversial, but I think it actually looks really good. This mocha color here looks nice. You can see there's the Super Cruise status bar, because this is the first Buick vehicle to offer Super Cruise, which is their hands-free driver assistance. It's part of a $3,200 or $3,700 upcharge. It's available across all the trims. You have paddles here to control the 8-speed auto. These are the buttons here to control the Super Cruise and to control the audio control functions. You can see the steering wheel. It is a power tilt and telescoping function, which offers, actually the wheel itself moves really slow. I've never seen a wheel move this slow, but it offers a good amount of adjustability and range, so you can kind of get comfortable in this cabin pretty well. You have the latest, a Buick and GM switchgear here. Your wiper controls over here along with your turn signals. This controls the 8-speed auto. You can see if you want to put it into reverse, you kind of pull toward you, then go up. That brings up the full 360 camera, which you can also go into several different views. The one thing I like about this vehicle is the 360 camera comes standard on every trim, so that's really nice. Although I don't like how the camera screen is actually really small compared to the rest of the actual screen real estate. Kind of pull toward you, go down to go to drive, and then you push the end of the stalk there to go into park. Now, before we get into the screen, I want to just briefly talk about the dash panel materials. You can see the dash has the same soft touch injection molded plastic from the door panel. It's kind of like carrying over here with the faux stitching. You have this beautiful aluminum trim here. I also really like the leather here with the kind of perforation there. That's a really unique design cue, which I think looks cool. Down here you can see more of that leather. This is actually real leather on this portion and on this portion. The dash vents, they certainly look different. I mean, Buick, I have to say, did a really good job of differentiating this interior, because I've already spent some time in the Traverse and the Acadia, and this interior certainly looks unique. There's also a heads-up display, which is pretty cool, and then there's also this really nifty floating center console here, which the floating center console is going to house a couple of things. First of all, it's got your cup holder storage, you got a wireless phone charging pad there, a big volume knob here, along with additional storage, along with more of those rose gold accents, which I think also looks pretty classy. But of course, let's come back to this, because this right here is the centerpiece of the interior. This is a 30-inch, that's right, it's a 30-inch single curved OLED display. Now, we first saw this kind of layout when Buick first introduced the Envista. However, in the Envista, it kind of had a dumbed down, watered down version, because it was technically two different displays. But now, as you can see, it's one continuous display. I don't particularly love the shape of this. In fact, it reminds me a little bit of the curved 33-inch display you get in some Cadillacs. You can see there's my phone connected to the wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Technically, the CarPlay screen only takes up this little portion. This area here is not usable in CarPlay, which is a little disappointing, but I appreciate the fact that they, just like in the Cadillac, the background for CarPlay continues over here, so it almost looks like it takes up the entire screen. Going back into the native system here, you can see this is running the latest version of their Google Assistant with the Android Automotive-based software. It has over-the-air updates, it offers voice commands, and it also offers adjustable ambient lighting. This is one of the first Buick vehicles to give you the multicolor ambient lighting, where you can increase the brightness, you can change the color to several different colors. Sadly, it's very bright here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Portland, so we won't be able to show you that. I'll have to wait until I get one back home to show you guys some detailed footage of the ambient lighting, but that's definitely a nice touch. The layout here, you can see when you're in the native system, just looks a lot better, because it really shows off the curved single display, which is kind of cool. And then it also has built-in Google Maps, obviously, which there's actually a really cool feature where you can kind of push a button here and you can pull the maps to be into that screen over here in the instrument panel, and then the passenger can go back and to do whatever they want to do here. Adjusting with the audio controls and whatnot. So that's kind of really nice in terms of customization. You can also pull up the CarPlay map into the actual instrument panel display, which is also cool. You can pull up a driver assistance display when you have Super Cruise. Most of you will probably just have it on that, which is kind of like the digital speedo with a tack and a fuel gauge. So there's a big level of customization here. Some of you may not like the fact that if you're looking for your headlight controls, however, you have to go into the screen here. You can go into like an auto setting, you can turn it on. You can also click on that. It brings up more controls where you can turn on your auto high beams. You can lock the power window controls out. Go to here, you can actually adjust a few more controls going to your drive mode selector here. You can turn on some of this, driver assistance stuff. But It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you kind of get it used to it and you set it all up, it should be fairly easy to, get used to and just fit into your everyday routine whenever you get in this car. Because it has Google built in, you can download things like Waze and Spotify, but if you're looking for Apple Music, Google does not allow you to download that. You have to go into the Apple CarPlay to kind of, access that. But overall, keep in mind, the screen in the Buick here is the largest screen compared to the Chevy and the GMC. The GMC has a 15-inch display, the Chevy has a 17.7-inch display. This is 30 inches, although that's for the single piece. I'd say this piece right here is probably 15, maybe 16 inches. So it's not quite as tall as what you get in the GMC, but it certainly makes for a much more premium look to it. The center console area here, coming back to this portion, I don't love the piano black plastic that you see here, but there is a pretty good amount of storage down here. Buick actually says that this console is strong enough to support 200 pounds. I personally am not going to test that out, but that's pretty impressive if you can actually put somebody who's like 180 pounds and sitting on this and it doesn't break. Padded center console, like I said, if I open this up, it's got 2 levels of storage. There's actually a pretty deep storage area there with an LED light. If you're looking for your USB charging ports, they're actually over here. You've got a USB-A and a USB-C. There's going to be more found throughout the vehicle. The seats, like I said earlier, these are the real leather seats that you get with the Avenir. Other trims of the Enclave are going to have a leatherette material, which is a fake leather. I love the contrast stitching and piping. These seats adjust in 12 different ways. You also get 3-person or 2-person memory on the driver's side. They're heated and ventilated. The heat and ventilation, however, is standard on this trim. It's optional on others. And the Avenir also offers a massage function. So if you want to go access the massage, you can see there's a little like a little switch over here on the seat where you can basically just go into, or you actually have to use this. There's basically just 3 levels of massage, and it's kind of like a lumbar massage. So it's not the same kind of, plush massage you're gonna get from like a Cadillac, but it is the only vehicle out of the triplets to actually offer massaging seats. So I just had the Acadia Denali that didn't have the massaging seats. So it's a nice feature to have, which is pretty good. You can see the glove box here. If you open this up, it's actually huge. It's damped, but not lined with felt. It's a bin style. It offers a lot more additional storage. If you guys are an audiophile, the 16-speaker Bose stereo sounds pretty decent, although if you're coming from like a luxury brand like a Volvo, for example, like an XC90, I do find the Bowers & Wilkins in that vehicle to be a little bit nicer. Above me, you can see there's a woven material for the headliner, and you also have this big panoramic sunroof, which also offers a retractable shade, and you can also tilt and slide this open completely, or at least over the 2 front seats, which is a nice feature to have. Some competitors offer a glass roof, but you can't actually open it up to vent air. That's the max, or actually that's the max you can open it, which is nice. It lets in a lot of light into an already light cabin. So overall, the interior certainly has some really big upgrades in terms of technology, because remember, the old Enclave maxed out at an 8-inch display. But in terms of, competing with luxury brands, it certainly looks like it can, but I really would have to spend a week with this vehicle and kind of compare it to some actual luxury brands. But I think Buick did a great job of differentiating this interior from its other platform mates. Bug. Yes. Literally like flew right into my face. Okay, there it is right there. Fucking asshole. Fucking asshole. Just go bother Alex or something. I know, what is wrong with this bug? Like, Jesus Christ. So if you guys prefer a darker theme on your Enclave, this is where you're gonna wanna check out the ST trim level. Now, I say trim level because the previous generation did offer an ST, but it was part of an option package that you could get on the Essence and the Preferred. Now this is technically the mid-trim option for the new Enclave. And you can see, compared to the Avenir that we showed you yesterday, there are some subtle differences. First of all, when you look at the front fascia, as opposed to the bright chrome work, which was like the satin nickel grille, you can see it's now just a gloss black grille. You still have the same Buick logo there with their tri-shield insignia. You still have the same divorce style here for the LED daytime running light and turn signal, LED headlights. This model here, however, does not have the dynamic turn signals with the animation. So that's one of the reasons, again, to go for the Avenir. You have that upgraded premium lighting. And then down here, you can see in the lower front fascia, it's got some more gloss black accents. It definitely looks good with this kind of white tri-coat metallic exterior color. This is part of an extra charge for about $1,100. With the black accents, it certainly makes this vehicle look a little more youthful and also a little bit more sporty. The ST is supposed to stand for Sport Touring. Now, around the side profile, you can see those are the standard wheels that you get on the ST. They're a 20-inch wheel, so they're 2 inches smaller, wrapped in a 255 by 55 R20 tire. Now, you can get an all-black finished 22-inch wheel for an extra $2,700. I personally would go for the wheel. I think these wheels look a little bit too small. but you do get more sidewall cushion protection. You have a little bit less ground clearance by going with the 20s. I think it reduces the ground clearance by about a ½ inch. But you can see the wheel arch trim here is also gloss black painted as opposed to the full paint finish. But let me know in the comment section below what you guys like or what you guys prefer, the Avenir or the ST trim. You can see there's also an ST badge here, black accents for the turn signals, along with black around the window trim and the roof rails. As you can see, they're the aerodynamic low profile ones. This model here also has the panoramic sunroof, which is standard on the Avenir. It's a $1,500 upcharge on the ST, so kind of keep that in mind. This trim is going to be a lot less, but if you want some of those features the Avenir has, you're going to have to add them back in, although you can't get everything on the ST that comes on the Avenir. Now, looking at the rear, you can see the taillight design is probably one of the more distinctive ones. Instead of the kind of chrome look that you have, the monochromatic look on the Avenir, you kind of have like just the traditional red look with the full LED light blade. It also includes LED turn signals, LED brake lights. This model that we're showing you here is all-wheel drive because the Avenir yesterday was not all-wheel drive. That's how you know it's all-wheel drive. There's a little subtle badge over here. Surprised to see there's no ST badge back here. Instead, it just says Buick Enclave with the new logo. You can see the bumpers are also gloss black as opposed to the full paint finish. I actually think that the full paint finish, to me, looks a little bit better. You still have the same looking dual rectangular exhaust system. The ST, I think, would have looked a lot better if they had given it the quad outlet system that you see in like its platform mate, the GMC Acadia. But overall, you can see the styling differences are all cosmetic. The suspension on this car isn't the upgraded full adaptive system. It's got passive dampers. So we'll talk about that during the drive scene later on. But let me show you guys the interior really quick as well. There are some changes here that should, give you pause if you guys, either want a light or a dark interior. Now, first of all, let me go and turn the vehicle on. You can see, even though this is the middle trim, you still have the full 30-inch display here. In fact, even the Preferred has that. The screen itself looks pretty much the same. This one, unlike the one that we were showing you yesterday, actually has the Google Maps working. So now it's actually able to get a GPS signal. You can also push this button here. It'll push the GPS map over into the instrument panel where I can go into a different look over here. You can also pull up Waze and Spotify. It has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This particular interior color is the only interior color option on the ST. You can see it's a black leatherette material. So instead of real leather, this is a fake leather. It has the perforations because the seats, while they have the holes, you cannot get ventilated seats on the ST. I thought you could, but for some reason now this only comes with heated seats along with a heated steering wheel. The seats adjust in 12 different ways. You have an ST badge over here. And I do wish the seats looked a little bit more aggressive. This trim really deserved like more aggressive bolstered looking seats. I also would have liked to see a light color option. This is the black leatherette with the contrast gray stitching and piping. It certainly fits the profile of this car, but imagine how this thing would look if it had like a dark cranberry red interior with this white exterior. I think it would look good. Super Cruise is part of a $3,200 option package. It's $3,700 on the Avenir. It's great that Buick offers Super Cruise, and they also offer the power folding third row and second row feature, which is part of an option package as well. You can see the mirror here is a traditional auto dimming instead of the digital camera. You still have that big panoramic sunroof, but overall, as you can see here, if you choose the ST, you're just gonna have to get used to the fact that it has a black interior. So if you want a lighter color interior, you're gonna wanna check out the Preferred or the Avenir trim, which offers two different versions of their light gray interior. Now moving to the back seat of the new 2025 Buick Enclave. This is where, again, if you are buying this vehicle as a family car, the Enclave is going to really do really well here because this is one of the largest vehicles that you get. Now, first of all, if you guys are looking for a second row bench seat, you're out of luck. You're gonna have to buy a Traverse because the Enclave, just like the Acadia, comes standard with these beautiful second row captain's chairs. In fact, Buick says about 95% of buyers tend to prefer the captain's chairs, so it's no surprise to me that they would only offer it with captain's chairs. But you can see that beautiful color of the light gray with the contrast stitching is carried over back here. And once you get inside, you can see the space back here is just absolutely ridiculous. Now, first of all, the door, I forgot to mention that earlier. It has a pretty solid sounding thunk. It actually sounds just like the last Acadia that I was in. And the one thing I'm noticing, just like in the Acadia, it's missing retractable sunshades. At this price point, it's a silly oversight that I think some consumers, are gonna find it, to be a problem. But you can see the door panel materials are the same soft touch injection molded plastic with the faux stitching. You have some aluminum accents here, real wood trim, some ambient light strips you can see, and then you can see this area here is nice and padded with the perforations in that rose gold accents. Down here, it is a hard touch plastic material, but there's also some additional storage in the lower portion of the door panel. And then in terms of the legroom space, Buick says there's 41.5 inches. 41.5 is definitely on the larger side. In fact, I love the fact that the floor is completely flat. I can basically, this is where I would have the seat to drive. I can stretch my legs out super easily. I can cross my legs and get super comfortable back here. And keep in mind, these seats also slide forward and back to give the third row passenger more space. And you can also recline the seats. This is the most that it reclines, which is decent. In terms of the headroom space, you can see the pano roof does take up a little bit of headroom, but I have maybe a good 2 to 3 inches of headroom space. But if you're over 6 feet, you could run into a little bit of clearance issues if you guys go for the pano sunroof. You can see down here, you have your own set of 3-zone climate controls. So you can see there's temperature knob, volume control there, or I'm sorry, fan speed control. There's also 3-level heated seats, but no ventilated seats. This is where Buick could have added ventilated seats back here, because remember, there's a lot of competitors in this space that started offering ventilated seats in the second row. You also have 2 USB-C charging ports, an actual 12-volt power outlet, a little bit more storage down here. This console looks pretty similar to the last Acadia that I was in. And then your rear seat air vents are going to be located here on the ceiling, along with your LED map lighting. So again, the second row space back here is excellent. This is among the most spacious that you're going to find in the class. But let's go ahead and hop into the third row. Now to get back here, Buick offers this really nifty little button. If you just push that button, like Rob is doing so, you can see the seat will catapult forward, and actually almost did it in sync. That was perfect timing, Rob. But it actually reveals a lot of space to get back into the third row area. Now I also want to point out that the third row is definitely roomy, but it's not the most spacious vehicle in the class. Now, Buick says there's 32.1 inches of legroom back here. Now, 32.1 is good, but the most space that I've seen is around 34 that you're going to find in something like the Toyota Grand Highlander, for example. At 5'7", sitting back here, you can see this seat, while it's not jammed up against my knees, I can sit back here and be relatively comfortable. The vehicle is also wide enough to accommodate 3 people across, so it's good because this seat's up to 7. If you're looking for an 8-passenger seater, you're gonna have to buy a Chevrolet Traverse. The headroom space is pretty good. There are features back here like USB-C charging ports. You have cup holders. It's all hard touch plastic, along with this kind of small rear window. The rear third row air vents are also obviously an important touch, especially if it's super hot. But I want to point out something here, because this second row seat is not all the way back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the seat all the way back here. And then once I did that, you can see here's where the problem lies, because now I'm kind of jammed back here. My knees are now really slammed against the back of this, so that's not great. For a vehicle that's this large on the outside, I've seen some competitors when the second row is all the way back, I have enough legroom back here to still not have my knees be jamming up against this seat. So keep in mind, if you want the third row to be usable for an average size adult like myself, you have to ask the passenger to move their seat forward just 1 click. So that's kind of something where I think that Buick could have worked on giving us a little bit more third row seat or third row legroom. But overall, again, this is still one of the bigger options in the segment, but just keep in mind, some competitors that are smaller on the outside still offer a smidge more third row seat space. So here we are back in Portland, Oregon. It's been a few years since we were actually back in this city. Now we are actually on our way to the coast, finally driving the new 2025 Buick Enclave. Now we actually just recently spent some time in the Traverse and the Acadia, so this is kind of actually perfect timing. Remember, in terms of powertrain, it has the same 2.5 liter turbo 4 hooked up to an 8-speed automatic transmission. This particular one that we're in is the ST with all-wheel drive. Yesterday we were looking at an Avenir with front-wheel drive. But let's go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise. I'm in sport mode. Let's just go ahead and floor it. All right, that's about as level as you can get for the road surface, but we got 7.85 seconds there. Now 7.85 is a smidge slower versus what I got in the Traverse and the Acadia. In fact, the Traverse, I believe I got like 7.6 seconds, so mid 7-second range sounds about right. This ST that we're driving is an all-wheel drive model, which makes it a little bit heavier. It should weigh in at around 4,900 pounds. It's hooked up to a new 8-speed automatic transmission, so it's technically down in gear compared to the previous generation with its V6, but that time, you don't buy a vehicle like this for 0 to 60 times. What you buy it for is just kind of like an effortless feel, and this new turbo engine definitely gives you plenty of mid-range punch. In fact, the engine itself has a pretty good amount of torque, and that kind of helps it get out of its own way, which is nice, paired up with that smooth 8-speed. What I don't like, however, is the sound of this engine. Just like when I was driving the Traverse and the Acadia, the engine itself just sounds coarse. It sounds strained all the time. Now, when you're cruising around like this is where the engine feels fine, but anytime you kind of go to accelerate, you just hear a lot of like unpleasant sounds coming from underneath the hood. Now, in terms of smoothness, I will say that the engine is smooth. There's not really much vibration coming in through the steering wheel or the pedals or the floorboards. but I think Buick could have put a little bit more sound deadening between the firewall to keep the engine noise from protruding. They also could solve that if they made this vehicle a hybrid. Again, there's no hybrid powertrain available. GM is working on reintroducing hybrids again to America, but for now, they are only just strictly gas-powered vehicles until that new generation comes out. Now, there's nobody behind me. I'm going to try doing another quick 0 to 60 run. This time, we're going to try to brake torque it and see what we can get here. Definitely doesn't like being brake torqued. So no launch control.
Saw that van coming around the corner.
7.98 there, so don't brake torque it, just floor it from a stop. You'll do 0 to 60 in the high to mid 7-second range, of course. In terms of elevation, I'm not even sure what elevation we're at, but overall, I think that time is a little bit slower versus some of the competitors I've tested. The really quick ones can do it in the mid 5-second range. I'm thinking about something like the Toyota Grand Highlander Hybrid Max. That'll do it in like just under 6 seconds. So kind of keep that in mind. It would be nice to see Buick do kind of an upgraded engine, especially since we're driving around in this ST trim. Now, moving on from the powertrain, most of you are probably going to find it fine in everyday driving. In terms of the ride quality, Buick is all about their quiet tuning. They're all about delivering a smoother, more upscale ride quality versus its rivals. Now, we are driving the ST, which means it has the less sophisticated FE4 suspension. The Avenir has the FE5, I believe that's what they called it, with the updated continuous damping control for the suspension. These are passive dampers as opposed to the adaptive ones. But we're also riding on smaller 20-inch wheels. There's a 22-inch wheel available for an upcharge on the ST. They're a black finished 22-inch wheel. We're not driving that. The Avenir comes with the 22s as standard. This car definitely rides nice. It's got that smooth, supple ride quality that you expect. It's got a little bit more sidewall protection. So on a road trip, this is where the car is going to be nice. It's going to, glide over bumps and imperfections. It's going to be really smooth. It's going to be really refined. In terms of quietness, when I'm not complaining about how the engine sounds, it actually is pretty quiet in here. Now, Buick was talking about an acoustically insulated windshield, although I don't know if that's exclusive to the Avenir trim. I'll have to confirm that. It is pretty quiet in here, and that's probably why I complain about the engine sound a good amount, because all you hear is the engine when you're pushing it. But when you're kind of driving around, at highway speeds, it is relatively smooth, quiet. I wouldn't say it's like quieter and smoother than most of its competitors, but if I had to guess, it's probably on par with the last Mazda CX-90 that I tested, which is actually pretty quiet. That car is probably this vehicle's nearest rival, because both Mazda and Buick tried to occupy like a white space in between mainstream and a luxury. This is kind of what they call, again, their premium division. But in terms of the seats, this model here has the leatherette seats. You can also get it with a real leather in the Avenir trim. The leatherette seats, they feel fine, although I will say that the cushioning, the padding could be a little bit softer. They don't have any additional, more aggressive bolstering, so that ST badge, again, even though we've seen ST on like a Ford performance vehicle like an Explorer ST, this is nothing like an Explorer ST in terms of acceleration or outright handling. Remember, the Explorer, the new one we just drove, is a rear drive based vehicle, while this is a front drive based crossover with, of course, their twin clutch all-wheel drive system. I would like to see Buick do more with the ST badge. I mean, they call it sport touring. It's more along the lines of touring and less along the lines of sport. Sport is really just all for the appearance, but I do want the seats to be a little bit softer padded. So kind of just try the seats out, make sure you like them. Keep in mind also the Avenir has a massaging seat, which I had a chance to try out yesterday when we were driving the Avenir looking for a filming spot. And I will say that the massaging seats are not good. They're the typical ones where the bolster just inflates and deflates, and I found them to be more annoying versus relaxing. Cadillac will get a much better massaging seat function that you simply just don't get in the Buick, because again, Buick has to kind of always be one tier below the Cadillac. In terms of the visibility, I can see out of the front and the side pretty well. This A-pillar is a little bit on the thicker side. The view out of the back is good, but if you're looking for the digital camera rearview mirror, you have to go for the Avenir trim and then add the Super Cruise function, which, by the way, the Super Cruise function is the first time that we are getting Super Cruise on any Buick. So let's go ahead and cue over to a highway driving scene so you guys can see what the Super Cruise is like. So GM's Super Cruise technology has been around probably for the last 5 or 6 years. I remember the first time I experienced it, I was in a Cadillac CT6 back in 2017 or 2018, and this is the first Buick. That's right, it took Buick this long to finally get Super Cruise, but I'm actually really glad that it's here, because Super Cruise over the years has gotten so much better. GM says by the end of 2025, they'll have over 750,000 miles that are miles of roads that are mapped mapped out and planned out, and that's where essentially Super Cruise will work. It's available as a $3,200 upcharge on this ST trim. It's $3,700 extra on the Avenir, which I kind of think the Avenir should have been standard with Super Cruise. The reason why it's $500 more on the Avenir is because it includes a digital camera review mirror, which is not available on the ST or the preferred trim, which is the base trim. So to activate it, we're on this highway here just outside of Portland as we're heading out toward the coast. You basically turn on the adaptive cruise control. It'll show you a gray steering wheel icon in the instrument panel, and then you basically push the steering wheel button below it, and as you can see, the Super Cruise turns on and it shows you a green status bar here. That's how you know the system is active, is that green status bar. It'll either glow, if it glows blue, it means that it's not hands-free. If it's red, there's a problem you need to take over. And this is where Super Cruise really works well. In fact, in terms of hands-free driver assistance tech, I really prefer it. In fact, like right now, it sees the Hyundai in front of me is going kind of slow. It actually looked in my blind spot and initiated the lane change. It vibrated my seat first. It switched over once it saw that it was clear, and it did that all on its own. I didn't have to lift a finger or do a thing, and the systems are actually really good at being proactive. So right now I'm cruising the left. As soon as we pass this Crosstrek over here, I assume it should move over, although the Civic has now moved over. You can see the car sees that it moved over. It should accelerate because I have it set to 75 now, but the system, as you can see, uses cameras, radar sensors. It keeps you really well centered in the lane, and it's kind of great because I can sit here and I don't have to keep my hands on the wheel. Basically, it's a technology that allows you to be true hands-free, so you can like eat, or you can, I guess, mess with things around the car. Although there is a camera here that watches my face to make sure that I'm alert and paying attention, because it hasn't exactly taken away responsibility from you as the driver to pay attention, but this to me is still the best system out there for hands-free driving. You can see it's going to change lanes for me now because it doesn't want me to be a jerk and cruise in the left lane going slow. So very much appreciate how it's, it's very quick to change lanes, and it will just keep me here centered perfectly, so I can just sit here and kind of enjoy the drive. And this is kind of where, if you guys do a ton of road trip driving, Super Cruise is one of the best systems out there. I mean, sure, Ford has their Blue Cruise system and they've made improvements to it, but every time I'm in a vehicle with Super Cruise, you can see this Transit Connect has cut me off and the car is automatically changing lanes for me. It's initiating the lane change, and it's just fantastic. I've had a chance to spend a lot of time with Super Cruise and a lot of other GM vehicles on longer road trips, and it's seriously your best friend out here in terms of technology. So if you guys are looking for this, you do a lot of road trips out there, the Enclave should definitely make it to the top of your list. But just remember, this tech is also available in this car's sister vehicles, the Traverse, and of course the new GMC Acadia. And I have to say, Super Cruise is probably one of the best new features that they added for this new generation Enclave. It is a must if you guys constantly do road trips. Now, in terms of fuel efficiency, this vehicle is rated at 19 and 24. When I tested the Acadia and Traverse, those vehicles were basically able to do around 18 mpg in the city and around 25 on the highway. So I did a little bit better versus the EPA's numbers. I'll have to wait until I get this one back home to test out the highway fuel economy figures. At a full tank, this vehicle was showing around 340-ish miles of range on a full tank, so not going to be the most fuel efficient offering. Again, that's where the Toyota Grand Highlander has a one-up over its competitors, because Toyota offers 2 hybrid powertrains. But if you guys are looking to kind of upgrade from your old Enclave, I mean, this new version has similar amounts of interior space, definitely a much better infotainment system. The technology in this vehicle is really nice, although yesterday the GPS native system wasn't working. It wasn't able to get a signal. Today, as you can see, it's working perfectly. It looks pretty good here with the 30-inch display, although again, this display here is probably closer to 15 inches. Technically, the Traverse has the biggest center display at 17.7, but overall, I really do like what Buick has done here with the overall packaging of the new Enclave. Is it perfect? No, but would it also be my choice over the Traverse and the Enclave? I'll talk about that during the conclusion, but for those of you who, again, simply can't decide between going with a mainstream vehicle or a luxury car, the Buick could definitely be worth a look in this premium space. So with a little under 40,000 sales in America every year, the Buick Enclave, while it may not be the best-selling vehicle out of its 3 siblings, it still represents a pretty big chunk of the sales pie, because as you guys know, Buick has been growing steadily in America. The company claims they do about 150,000 sales in the US every year. So the Enclave accounts for over 25% of those sales. So after finally getting a chance to drive the all-new third generation, just like its platform mates, the Traverse and the Acadia, I think GM has done a really good job with this redesign. Obviously, the design is a subjective thing, but I think this is probably the best angle to see the Enclave in. I love the rear taillight design. This model that we're showing here is the ST with more of the black accents as opposed to the shiny chrome and the full paint finish. The front end is kind of a miss for me. I don't love the way the new Buick front fascia looks, but again, that's a subjective thing. If you guys like the styling of this vehicle, my opinion of it is certainly not going to stop you from buying it. The interior is also a huge upgrade here. That big 30-inch curved display certainly looks very impressive. It looks like Buick basically ripped it out of the latest Cadillac products, which have a 33-inch display. Love the fact that it still has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The Google software still needs a little bit of work, at least on this really early pre-production model that I tested, but that can also be fixed via an over-the-air update. Really, the biggest issue that I have with essentially this platform is the powertrain refinement. I don't love the sound of the engine, but again, that's kind of a personal preference. Those of you who don't even notice the engine in your current Enclave, you're probably going to drive this and not even notice it, and just notice that it has a lot more mid-range power. As you guys saw, 0 to 60 happens in just under 7 seconds. Fuel economy should be about the same, or I'm sorry, just under 8 seconds, not 7 seconds. Fuel economy should be pretty similar to your old V6, but I'll have to wait until I get one back home to test out for a full week to try it out. I do wish that the ST trim actually had more sporting potentials. This is more of a touring trim as opposed to a sport trim. I also really want to see one with the 22-inch alloy wheels, because the 20s on this model looks a little bit small, but overall, this is still an excellent family vehicle, and it certainly can represent Buick as their flagship SUV offering, but you kind of have to keep in mind that there are also some really good choices out there within the GM portfolio, like the new Acadia, for example. Now, if you guys are looking to put this new Enclave in your driveway, what's it going to cost? Well, this vehicle is heading to dealerships right now as we speak, and base pricing for the preferred trim with two-wheel drive is going to start at around $45,000, add about $2,000 if you guys want all-wheel drive. This model that we're showing you is the ST. The ST is going to cost you around $2,500 more, because essentially, again, it's an appearance package. Add in with the all-wheel drive, the power package, the Super Cruise package that my test car has with destination charge and the panoramic sunroof, and you're looking at an as-tested price for this model here at just under $59,000. I know 60 grand sounds like a lot, but also keep in mind the Avenir that we drove and showed you guys yesterday actually costs more. That one will top out at over $65,000. It essentially starts at 60 grand plus 3 grand for the 3,700 for the Super Cruise and the upcharge for the paint and the destination. 65 grand is certainly a lot of money. It is obviously going to be more expensive versus the old Enclave. It also makes it the most expensive out of the Traverse and the Acadia. But I would argue that the Buick tries to be more of a premium brand. It's going to be a little bit quieter. It's going to be a little bit softer riding. It certainly has its own unique style, its own unique interior. So if that's important to you, it's certainly worth a look. But also keep in mind, you could also look at a luxury brand like a Lexus TX, an Acura MDX, an Infiniti QX60, or a Volvo XC90. That'll actually cost in the mid 60 to upper $70,000 range. So you could essentially spend the same or a little bit more to get the luxury brand. And that's kind of where the Buick falls into a really interesting middle ground here if you guys are undecided between a luxury or a mainstream brand. But I think personally, Buick has done a good job here, but I just want them to eventually do a hybrid option. I think that'll really push the Enclave and the other vehicles to the next level. With all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2025 Buick Enclave in the ST and Avenir trim. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.